Hey guys,
Hi,
I'm Lexi,
and I'm Danny.
and this is
Girl Preach Podcast.
we're so excited to be back with you guys this week.
Yes, we're so happy to be back and getting back into the groove of our recording. This is episode 2. Wait, get hold of episode 2.
Yes, season 2, episode 2. In case you're like, wait, I thought I already watched episode 2.
Right.
But this is just the podcast where we want to talk about things that are happening that we see on social media or on the news or just in general, and conversations that we can have together and hopefully spark conversations within your friend group, your community, whoever you hang out with. So
Maybe just show a different way of to look at things.
yeah. So let's dive into this week. What are we talking about?
This week we're talking about crybabies.
Crybabies.
I don't know how you want to
It's a very graceful way to put it.
It's not. I'm sorry. I don't really know how to I've not thought of a title or anything for this episode yet. But today we're just talking about how to handle the world when they mock us, when they mock God, when they mock Christianity, and the events, because we try to take from events that are happening or like world events or, just like hot topics like of the time. We try to take from those sometimes. And this time we're talking about the Paris Olympics,
Yeah.
which was like such a controversial thing, like all over Facebook. And like I seen one side and I seen the other side. And I ultimately just, me and Lexi talked and we just wanted to talk about what the Bible says about it.
Yeah.
How to handle mockers and what our role as Christ followers should be in that. So, yes. Crybabies. I don't know.
I guess. So I don't really watch the Olympics. I know it's like a really big national thing that everybody loves.
Yeah.
I've never really been into it.
Yeah.
I like watching sports, but only if I'm there in person.
Oh, yeah.
Football's about the only thing I watch actually on TV.
Yeah.
So when the Olympics was coming out and everything, I did not pay attention to anything until my Facebook
Right.
got flooded with the whole picture
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
thing. And I was just confused because to me, whenever I first saw it, like I didn't even know what it was. And it did not spark like Last Supper, mockery, anything like that to me whenever I saw it. But then I saw people start talking about it
Yeah.
and like saying what they were saying, and I was like, oh, okay.
And then you could see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when I've seen it the first time too, I also did not get Last Supper.
Yeah. Even with that though, I still don't see the Last Supper in it. I just like I don't know how to explain it. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't come off to me.
I think it was a reach. That's what I think it was. I think it was Christians in America like to be offended. I think they like, not all, I'm trying to put like everyone in the same category, but I think that that is like a theme right now. I think that I've seen not just with that, but a lot of different things. Like Christians are looking for something to be upset about, and it's kind of like not the boy who cried wolf, but just like, oh, persecution. Like they're just like looking for it under ever. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like what I thought. Like I chalked it up to when I seen it because it didn't give me Last Supper vibes. Like I don't know.
Do you know, because I didn't do a lot of research into it, but do you know if it was just American Christians who were upset, or do you know if like people from other countries were saying the same thing?
I didn't do a lot of research into like if it was other countries or just Americans, but I feel like on TikTok, like I get a lot of videos from like other countries and stuff, and like a lot of the videos from the other countries were talking about like American Christians and how they were offended about the Paris Olympics and how that's just how the French are, and like that's just Paris culture, like whatever. And so I would assume it was probably just the majority of like American Christians, but I can't say that for a fact. That's just what I've seen. So
Yeah. So we call them crybabies right now. That's what we're saying.
yeah.
Quoting you. But how is being upset about what happened with the Paris Olympics, whether or not they actually did mean to copy The Last Supper, how is that different than a few months ago when Taylor Swift came out with her CD and people were upset with that?
Right. So I would
Is
say
it different?
I would say for me personally, because like when Taylor Swift came up with her album and I felt like there was one of the songs I understood the message and I didn't feel like it was mockery of the church or of God. But the other one was very clearly blasphemous in what she was talking about and comparing it to Christ and all of that. I would say the difference is that Taylor Swift claims to be a Christ follower. She says that she's a Christian. She claims to be a Christ follower. And I think that that's different to mock Christ or compare your very like sinful, lustful situation to Christ on the cross versus people who are lost and not Christ followers dressing in drag portraying the Last Supper. Like to me that's different. Like the Christ follower versus the lost is what makes it different for me. And I don't know. So yeah, for me that was personally the difference.
Has she recently, and I'm just saying this because, like, I haven't heard a lot about it, but, like, has she recently come out and said that she's a Christian? Or was it, like, before, like, oh, yeah, like, I'm a Christian kind of a thing?
She's just said it, like, in interviews and stuff, you know?
But, like, recently, or, like,
I would say within the last, like, 5-10 years, probably, I would say. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying she's not lost. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, like, at any time when, like, you're that public of a figure and you make the statement, like, I believe in God, like, I'm, you know, whatever, people are going to hold you to that standard. So, like, I don't know. To me, that was the difference. But, like, not everyone will look at it the same way. Because there was people who were like, oh, it's fine, you know, like, she believes in God. And I'm like, okay, but that should give you all the more reason not to mock what Christ did on the cross.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Well, because we've had conversations like that where whenever you're dealing with unbelievers, you have to let them choose how they want to live. But when you are dealing with Christians, we are called to
call them out with gentleness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are. It's different. It does make a difference.
To correct them.
I just don't know Taylor Swift's life.
I think I was reading that actually.
So I don't know. I didn't know where that was. But there are a lot of people who, like, any little thing that happened that seems to mock God or Jesus or anything that we hold dear as Christians.
Right.
It seems to be a big deal.
Okay, here. I was just reading this earlier. Brothers and this is Galatians 6:1. Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. But watch yourselves, or you may also be tempted to carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. If anyone thinks they are something when they are not, they deceive themselves. Each one should test their own actions. They can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else, for each one should carry their own load. Nevertheless, the one who receives instruction in the word should share all good things with their instructor. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. So I was reading that because it was talking about like God not being mocked and like that's what our thing was.
Mm-hmm.
But when you said that about like correcting like the believer, it brought me back to like the first one when, you know, it says when someone's caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently.
Yeah.
But also watch yourselves that you're not swept up in that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think that was my take a little bit with the Olympics was like, well, because I think like we're going to get more into the topic of like why people get so offended or like how Christians should react differently. But like aside from that, I actually lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
I do it all the time.
I was just thinking like if we're gonna get this offended by something, don't watch it, don't participate in it, don't be a part of it. And I think which the note that I made is just like this world is evil and the Bible just talks about how much the world is going to hate Christians and Christianity and Jesus and God and Jesus himself multiple times just talks about like they hated me first or one of the quotes that I took was from John and it was like which obviously like I'm taking quotes definitely like read the context of what we're talking about because there's whole messages in there and I'm just taking these small little quotes.
For sure, like read the entire chapter and if you can't read the entire chapter, try to do like 5 above, 5 below. Like that's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. But just in that John verse, it was like, he was talking to his brother, and he's like, talking about like people, the world. It hates me because I testify that its works are evil. And I was just, like God is hated, Jesus is hated because when you look at them, you see perfection, right? And
Right.
in order to see perfection, you have to see how sinful we are. So, like,
Right.
to look at Jesus is to look at sin too
Right.
in our lives. And people don't want their sins called
Right.
out. They don't want to be told that they're sinful, that they're doing wrong, that they're living badly. But especially when they want to live in that sin and they want to be justified in that sin. And so that's why Christianity
Right.
and Jesus and all the things that we stand for are so hated, is because nobody wants to be called out for that.
Right.
But then we want to be a part of it. Like, we want to watch the Olympics, or we want to listen to people do music.
Right.
We want to live in this world with these people, but then we get so offended when they do what Jesus tells us the world is going to do, because, oh, we can't be a part of it now because we've seen, like, the world's shown us who the world is.
Right.
And now we're going to be really mad, and we're going to be offended, and we're going to take up arms about it.
Right.
And just,
it's like the Super Bowl. Every year
Yeah.
people get so mad about the Super Bowl halftime show. And I'm like, every stinking year
Mhm.
I see like Christians, Christ followers on Facebook griping about like how inappropriate and how scandalous like the Super Bowl is and things like that. And it's like, well, what do you expect? Like, look at what the Super Bowl is. Like, look at what the worldliness the consumer is on. Like, look at all of that essentially stands for.
Yeah.
And you are surprised when the halftime show and the entertainment for that is not Christ-like. And it's just like it blows my mind every year. But you have those that are like mad if it's too scandalous or too worldly, and then on the other hand, like when you finally get a good, clean halftime show, people are mad because it's boring.
Yeah.
Like, wait,
Yeah.
why are you not happy?
Yeah. You get mad whenever you're like, well, maybe don't watch that. Like I just said, like, don't watch it, don't participate in it.
Right.
And they're like, it's football. Like, I love football.
My
I should
family
be a
loves
part
to
of
watch
this.
it, and
Like,
I'm like,
it's a part of who we are. But like at that moment, you're putting football or whatever it is above Christ.
yeah.
And I mean, I watch football. I just said earlier that I watch
We
football.
are like a huge football family. We watch it every Saturday. College football is huge to us. My husband loves like the pro NFL. So like we watch the Super Bowl every year, and it just, I mean, I don't know.
But with that, like, I know the world's gonna do what the world's gonna do. I typically don't watch the halftime show.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I don't typically watch the Super Bowl anyways.
Yeah.
But anyways, you don't see me out there complaining and crying about how the world is being worldly.
Correct.
And then choosing to still be a part of that. Like,
yeah, you have the choice to partake in that or not to partake in that. And I understand, like, maybe the opening to the Olympics in the past has never been scandalous, has never, I don't know. I've never heard of it being like the halftime show for the Super Bowl. So I could understand where, like, families are sitting down to watch sports, to watch gymnastics, to watch swimming, to watch these types of things and being so caught off guard when there is drag queens and like sexual like things being portrayed. Like I get them being caught off guard because normally it's not been like that, but like you said, it's the world, and you have to look at Paris. Like the percentage of Christians in France is like less than 1%, so it's like, what do you expect from that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, my thing is it's the culture of today right now for all that to happen. I mean, you see it hitting all of the kids shows. You know that it's leaking into every area. So are you really that shocked when it is in the Olympics? Like, are you really that caught off guard?
Yeah.
Because it's who we are as a society right now. If
anything, it's on the Christ follower for letting down that guard. Because, I mean, aren't we supposed to have our guard up to those things constantly? Sorry, I'm trying to get comfortable.
You're fine. I forgot my pillow, so I feel like I'm missing something.
I always have my little lucky blanket. My foot was falling asleep, so I had to rearrange. But, yeah, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that it's wrong to be upset. Like, obviously, when you see something that mocks the person that we've chose to devote our
Right.
lives to, like that does hurt. It is something that we're
Right.
going to feel. We're going to be frustrated and stuff. I think, though, that how we've responded is what is wrong. I think that's the purpose of this video is
Yeah.
like talking about how we respond to things
Yeah.
more so than like feeling hurt. Like, you're gonna feel hurt.
I think feeling angry and feeling hurt are two different things. Like, I think initially to see that and be upset, okay, fine. But like you said, it's the response, but you shouldn't let it stay in an anger. It should be like, you should be sympathetic to those people. You should be sympathetic to the lost. You should be sympathetic to the ones who are mocking you for following Christ, and for the ones who are mocking Christ for who Christ is, you know? And I think that that's the difference. Like, I don't think, for the most part, and I'm not gonna like lump all Christ followers in there, but we have really lost the empathy towards the lost, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. I I think that when we get upset because of the world, whenever they do things,
Right.
we're like, they're mocking God. This isn't okay. Like, it's not okay. We know it's not okay.
Right.
But we're also told, like, that's not our battle to fight.
It's not.
And I think, like, going to other believers that and being like, did you see that? Like, I do really need to talk about this right now. And talking
Right.
about it with them and kind of venting it out a little bit, like, that's fine. But taking it to social media and throwing the biggest fit, that is not okay. Because all it's doing is widening that gap between us and the unbelievers, and it's making it harder for us to do the job that we're supposed to be doing, which is reaching the unbelievers, because
Right.
they're like, you guys are just a bunch of crybabies, and like you said, crybabies, I guess it is.
I mean,
the thing.
honestly.
But like, because I have people on my social media whose family who are very opinionated anyways,
Right.
and very much against Christians and Christianity.
Yeah.
And just like seeing their response to it, that's what really hurts my heart, because I can just see them going further and further away because of
Right.
our attitudes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I always like try to think about, like, so if you're making a post about the drag queens that did, which it was not a portrayal of the Last Supper, like, I'll put that out there, like, it was not. But I lost my train of thought. But the Christians who are upset and make posts about that are like angry, those drag queens or those actresses or those who are running the Olympics, like doing like the media and all that, they're not going to see your post. Like, pipe down. But the unbelievers on your page, like like those are going to like those people will see your post, and they will see your hate, and they will see everything they don't want to be.
Yeah.
And that should terrify you, and that should break your heart as a Christian, and that should really make you check your motives before you post or whatever.
Yeah. I think a good rule of thumb is, am I building people up? Am I telling or am I tearing them down with these words that I'm about to say? Because anytime you're being negative or you're tearing people down, don't say it.
Right.
Even if you're right, even if like it is like the other people in the wrong, and I mean, as long as they're not like physically hurting you, like there's no reason, just let it go, let it fall off. Because we are told, I mean, I know like the Bible says, like, if somebody comes to you for forgiveness, how often should you forgive them? But we are told to be people of forgiving natures, and I don't see that in very many Christians. I don't see that in myself most of the time.
Yeah,
let alone
it's hard for me. Yeah, too. I just like see throughout scripture, like I'm just trying to like, just off the top of my head, like I just don't see Christ reacting to mockers and to the ones who criticize him, other than like the Pharisees, like the already like ones that already believed in God.
Yeah.
But to the lost, to the Gentiles, like you don't see that response from Christ.
Yeah.
You don't see that response from the disciples. And so to me, it's like, what the audacity that we have as Christ followers to respond that way to the lost. Like, honestly, like that's audacity right there. Like, not in a good way.
And what does it mean to them? They don't care.
Yeah,
they don't care that you're mad that they hurt your feelings or that they think that they're gonna keep mocking
They don't
God,
care that they mocked God. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care. And I have this right here. I don't know. I feel like it kind of goes. But it's in Proverbs. It says, Proverbs 9. Whoever corrects a mocker invites insults. Whoever rebukes the wicked incurs abuse. Do not rebuke mockers, or they will hate you. Rebuke the wise, and they will love you. Instruct the wise, and they will be wiser still. Teach the righteous, and they will add to their learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. For through wisdom your days will be many, and years will be added to your life. If you are wise, your wisdom will reward you. If you are a mocker, you will suffer. You alone will suffer. And in like the little commentary, it says, "Are you a mocker or a wise person? You can tell by the way you respond to criticism instead of tossing back a quick put down or clever retort when rebuked. Listen to what is being said. Learn from your critics. This is the path to wisdom. Wisdom begins with knowing God. He gives insight into living because he created life. To know God is not just to know the facts about him, but to stand in awe of him and have a relationship with him. Do you want to be wise? Do you get to know God better and better? But in that, they don't fear God.
Yeah.
They don't fear God and they don't know God. So they're not going to care if they mock God. And I talked about this last podcast, and I don't know, like, if this is just God trying to, like, speak to me, because this is the second week in a row that this has, like, really resonated with me. But where it talks about the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. You have to fear God in order to know God, in order to learn who God is, to learn about his word, to have a relationship with him, to build your knowledge out of this book. You have to fear God first. Like,
Yeah.
that comes before anything else.
Yeah.
And there's a lack of fear. And I don't know. But
I think you clarified it last time you used that too, was just like to fear God doesn't mean to like
cower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're not like hiding in a corner scared. Like it
Right.
means to like
Respect.
yeah, respect and to like honor him and like know his greatness. Like you know him.
Right.
And you're right. People do not care.
They don't.
And I think talking to people who mock and just like having those arguments with them. Like like Psalms again says, like, don't have foolish arguments with people just to argue. Like you can have conversations with unbelievers, like where you kind of like go back and forth. But like if you're doing that with somebody who absolutely doesn't care about God, somebody who doesn't want to actually have that conversation, it's gonna be fruitless. And it's not gonna be a good conversation. Nobody's gonna come out for the better. You're both gonna be exhausted and tired and mad and
Yes, it's like a Facebook argument.
It is. And so like us doing that, like as Christians, like throwing these things out there and just being mad, like there's no return in that. That's not glorifying God. Like you might feel like you're standing up for God by sharing that stuff.
And I've had to learn that.
Yeah.
Because like I've been really bad about like posting on Facebook, like not like about this Paris stuff, but like I did make a post on the Taylor Swift thing, and I was like, and it was more of a parents, be aware that this is what is in this song. If you're a Christ follower, be aware. You know, and I even blatantly said, I do not hate her. I do not, condone hate of her, like in the comments, but like just be aware. But people took it as I was like, being this Christian, like someone was like, oh, here's the satanic panic or, whatever. But like that wasn't the case. But I mean, that's what it is ultimately, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Had something that I wanted to say.
I'm sorry.
It slipped away.
I just feel like this also, like on this Facebook thing, this verse 7 really reminded me of like the arguments on Facebook, because it says, whoever corrects a mocker invites insults. So as a Christ follower, you might be 100% right in your calling out of XYZ. But then you're inviting that insult back in. You know what I mean? So like you're correcting them, but they're going to insult you as a Christian, as a person, like they're, whatever. And then I see like Christ followers get so offended and so upset and so butthurt, like, oh, can you believe what they said about me in the comments? Like, bro, you just called them out. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like in a public like setting as well. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. I remember my thought. It was just because I was talking about like how we feel like we need to stand up for God.
Yeah.
Like how kind of how you were talking about earlier, like how much do we think of ourselves to think, oh, I need to stand up for
The
him?
audacity. Yeah.
God's got this. And that verse that you shared, I think it was Galatians.
Galatians. Yeah.
That like God is going to judge and punish people for what they've done. And like he's got this and he doesn't need us. Like it tells us multiple times, turn the other cheek, or, be the person who is choosing not to.
Right. To me, it's almost like hypocritical too, because like all the ones who were sharing, like, well, I'm done watching the Olympics. Like these people are mocking God, XYZ, like they're doing this or whatever. But I read another post on Facebook and it was just very gentle, and I think I shared it. I think Chris shared it too. But it was just like, okay, but you as a Christian are also mocking God. You're mocking God by claiming to be a Christ follower and coming and just sitting in church on Sunday mornings and not serving when He's calling you to serve. Mm-hmm. You're mocking God, and it was just like XYZ of all the hypocritical ways that Christians also mock God. And I was just like, man, like that's so true. Like I mock God according to those standards. Like I don't know.
That's good. I'm right there with you. I kind of, whenever I was kind of thinking about what we were going to talk about and just what I wanted to say, I was really thinking, whenever we first started this podcast and I brought it to you and I was like, hey, let's do this. I wanted it to be for believers and non-believers.
Right.
Because I had seen so many videos through TikTok of people talking about church hurt or like how they felt about these things. And I wanted to be a voice to be like, like, this is how true Christianity should be. And I wanted it to also be for non-believers. But if you look at the videos that we release and the conversations that we've had, I think like the Holy Spirit is moving towards we need to address Christians kind of a podcast and maybe not focus on the unbelievers right now. Because, I mean, even things that I've said or thought like recently in this podcast too, like as we're going on, like I'm learning new things. And
me too.
Speaking to me through these same podcast episodes that we're speaking for you guys. And I think that just even in this, like, I think Christianity has gotten it so wrong lately. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's good to just have this voice to be like, we need to talk about this and this isn't okay. And I think that even though this podcast isn't what I intended it to be, I think that it's going what in the directions it needs to be. Yeah. And so I was just interested in that and just like, I really, because I mean, that's obviously our hearts as unbelievers. Yeah. Coming to terms with like, maybe this podcast needs to be something that believers think about first. And then like one day maybe we can get to the unbelievers. But
I think for me personally, like in that area, I've experienced a tremendous amount of church hurt in the last 7 years. Like it has been overwhelming. And coming out of that season and feeling more healed than we were when we moved back last year, Chris and I especially, and we've had these conversations with you, we see the problem in the church and then the way that the church is organized and in the way that the church is set up. And we see the hypocritical things that Christ followers doing, us included. And I think at least that's been my heart, like, and I did intend to start this like you did for the non-believer as well. But like you said, it's just kind of evolved to that. And maybe that's because that's where we are in our own lives as well. I don't know.
Our Jesus time is bleeding through, which honestly, is fine. I try to be as authentic as I can be in every aspect of my life, and if that's how it comes out through here, like I'm okay that's great. With that. Yeah. I'm just along for the ride. Have you seen those videos where they're like, hold on, and then like they take off running and like you're just following behind? Yeah, that's kind of how I felt the last few months, right? To a year. Yeah, I feel that too. But because earlier I was talking about how, like, when we look at Jesus, we're looking at our sinful nature and we're seeing that. Right. And I think that so many people hate to be called on sin, called out on sin. And then that's like their rebuttal whenever they're talking about Christianity and why they don't agree with Christianity is, oh, this is how people treat us because we're gay, or this is how we're treated because of whatever issue that there is.
Yeah.
And it's one of those conversations because I saw a video on this like not even that long ago, and they were talking about parents kind of like rejecting their kids or not wanting them around because they're gay and the parents are super religious. But anyways, the person didn't answer the question, I guess, how people wanted him to, and they feel like they kind of skirted over it. But I'm like, we're all sinners. We're all in the same boat. We're all sinners. We're all choosing whether or not we want to live in our sin or not. And if you're choosing to live in your sin, then you are choosing to be separate from Christ.
Right.
And it really frustrates me because there's a lot of like pastors or Catholic priests. That's what I'm looking for. There's a lot of people who are leaders in the church who are coming out now and like changing the way they phrase things in order to be more inclusive or like giving into all of these things.
Yeah.
And
we talked about that with like what church is that? Transformation Church? The Easter thing. How they they excluded certain words.
That wasn't Transformation.
What church was that? Stephen Furtick's church.
Yeah.
Elevation.
Okay.
I knew it was one of them.
Okay.
They all sound the same. Anyway, but yeah.
But I think that we need to stand on those boundaries. If you're choosing to live in sin, you're living in sin, you're separate from God, and we cannot change the way that we present the gospel, but we can change the way how we respond to people pushing back against us. And I think that's where the actual key is. And you maybe will never get the answer that you want to hear. Well, you're never going to get the answer you want to hear if you're choosing to live in your sin. But anytime you bring up those rebuttals because you think that's just a stab in the throat to Christians having to answer that, the real reality is like, I'm sorry that your parents treated you the way that they treated you. That wasn't okay. The response wasn't okay. But you are choosing to live in your sin. That is sinful. We're sinful
that doesn't
too.
change.
We're not like
choosing
we're actively trying to not live in sin. Like we are still gonna sin, but we're actively trying to do better.
But we shouldn't be
following Christ. We're like our intentions are that way. And so there is that difference there, but the response is what's not okay. And I think that's what we're trying to get in here is people suck. Christians suck.
That's going to be the clip right there. That's going to be the preview clip. People suck. Christians suck.
We make bad choices. And the responses that come out of that is really, and I tell people, I think I either had a conversation with you or with Becca where we were talking about like, parents with their kids, like you make mistakes, but it's your response out of that really matters. And how you respond to your kids after you make a mistake, because that's what they're actually learning.
I was actually listening to a parenting podcast this week. And I mean, I'm just like in tears because I'm like, I'm screwing it up. And I mean, it was like a good faith-based podcast. I haven't finished it. Like, I've just got through the first 2 episodes. But that's exactly what it said. Like, it was like, it is the response to your mistakes and it's your response to your children's mistakes that's going to make the biggest difference and the biggest impact. And he did make me feel better because he was like, the studies show you only have to get it right 2 out of 5 times to be successful. I think I'm doing that. 2 out of 5.
I don't even have kids, and here I am giving you advice about your kids.
Oh, bless.
No.
I'll take it off. You haven't given me. Mom think it's hard.
No. I've said it so many times. You have to let the world be the world. You have to let people choose how they want to live. And tell people about Jesus. Go out there and spread the word. Be a disciple.
And it's okay to have
active. But ultimately, you have to let them choose. And even Jesus would tell his disciples, well, if they're not going to listen to you, dust your shoes off and walk out of that town. Like, it's hard to do because especially like when it's people in your family that you're like, please. But like when you have that heart for Jesus, any person who denies the gospel, and I can say this knowing that it's true because I have shed tears so many times, like talking to people, just like, can you get it? Can you feel this? Can you understand what I'm trying to tell you? And anytime that somebody says no and they walk away and you're like, I gave my all, like, why aren't you choosing Jesus? Like, you want people to love him and you want people to see him, but you have to let them walk away and you have to be okay with it. And
as hard as it is.
Yeah. And not be like, I did something wrong. I messed it up. I could have done this better. I did all that I could do.
Yeah.
And I'm trusting that God is going to be faithful in that. And he's going to be glorified through this, no matter what.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. Like, it has to be their decision. Like, and it goes back to what we were talking about last week. We can't force it on people. We have to allow that to be their decision. And like you said, it's hard. Chris and I have like mentored and poured into students and adults alike. And it is so heartbreaking to see them fall away or to see them decide this isn't for me and to leave. And like you said, like tears are shed. Like it is so hard. I don't know. But yeah, like we just can't be surprised when the world acts like the world and when they do worldly things. But we, like you said, we can change our response to it. And anger is never the response. You should, I feel like when you see those things, it should always invoke an emotion of sadness and heartbreak because if not, then we're not asking God to break our hearts for what breaks his because that breaks his heart. I don't think that, and I can't speak for this because I don't know, but just from what I know of God and how I have had my relationship with God, I'm sure he's heartbroken first and foremost for the lost. He's not angry at them. And I think that that is something that we take, especially, and I can't speak for Christians outside of America, but for sure, like Christians within America, I think we see God as like this angry punisher in the sky waiting to punish us for any wrongdoings, Christians and non-Christians alike. And I think that that's our view of God, and we have taken that on to ourselves, and so we're just angry and we're ready for people just to get their, consequences dealt out. And like, that's not the way that we're called to be. Like we are supposed to have our hearts broken for what breaks God's heart. And like that breaks God's heart because those people are bound for an eternity away from him.
Yeah.
And he wants all to come to him. And like, I don't know. I think that we have it wrong. I think that we have it wrong in that area. And I look at the example. I mean, I don't know. You see Christ get mad in the temple when he's like, and that's one of my favorite stories because the little fiery person that I am, because I am an person sometimes. But like, I love the story where Christ goes in and he's like flipping tables and he's cracking whips and he's angry, but he wasn't angry at the lost. He was like, when we see Christ angry, we see him angry at the ones that should know.
Yeah. At the people that are taking advantage of other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. There's biblical reasons to be angry.
Yeah.
But unbelievers mocking us and mocking Christ are not one of those reasons.
Well, I think it's fine to be angry. It's just
the response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I could go to you and be like, hey, I saw this and I'm mad.
Yeah.
And then I can talk to you about it. Like, because we're both Christians and we're both going to come at it from a Christian mindset.
Right.
That's fine. But I'm not going to go to my brother and be like, this really made me mad. I can't believe people are doing this.
Yeah.
Because that
he's going to call you a crybaby.
Yeah. And he's going to be like,
yeah.
Why would you be upset about that? You're just so
sensitive and yeah.
Yeah, but like they think that we're like
looking for
super strict, like unmoving, like
yeah.
There's a word for it and it's not coming to me, but it's just like I wouldn't do that to him.
Yeah.
Because it's not gonna benefit either one of us.
I've just like I've seen a TikTok lately and they were like it was a non-believer and they were like, let's see what the Christians are offended about these days and like starts listing off like different posts and stuff and it was like it was meant to be a funny for non-believers, but to me I was like, man, that breaks my heart because that's what they're seeing of Christians. They're seeing us mad over these stupid things, which, if it was the Lord's Supper, be upset, but like you said, don't voice that because you're doing a disservice to the like Christianity. And I don't know, like I just seen that and I was just like, man, that sucks. That like that's their view of Christians is we are these crybabies and we're looking for offenses under every rock.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think our response to anything like that, anytime we think people are mocking God or mocking Christians or just being sinful in any way, like our response should be like lighting that fire under us to do better.
Right. I
For
agree.
Jesus. Like, go out, share the gospel, do what you've been called to do, because you look and you see how wicked things are, and you're like, eventually we're running out of time, and we're not going to be able to have this moment back again where I could tell this person about Jesus.
Right.
And things like this should put you on fire to do what you've been called to do.
Right.
Because it should remind you.
Right.
Like, these should be reminders of what we're told in the Bible. And it should, I don't know, like, I just don't think enough people are in their Bibles or trying to learn more. And
that goes for me too. Like there's times where like I will read this thing for a month straight, every day for a month. Like I'm in it, I'm, studying. But this summer it was hard for me. Like I did read my Bible, but it was not near as like consistent as it should have been. It wasn't a part of my daily schedule because we just got busy and that's not an excuse. Like that's just an awful awful habit that I went into. And that goes for me as well. Like,
yeah,
I fall into that
same.
all the time.
Yeah.
But when I brought this up, like this topic to talk about, the story that you immediately recalled of Paul when he was like being followed around by the little girl, like I just laughed. Is that right? You don't
The little girl. Oh, the one that was like
the
mom.
woman, yeah.
Oh yeah. And then he was just like, come out of her.
Yeah, like this demon is just like consistently like mocking Paul, and he's just like finally annoyed, and he's like, "You gotta go, like
Yeah.
get out of here." And I'm like, and I was thinking about that as I was reading and as I was like praying and preparing for tonight, and I'm like, most of the time that we deal with like scoffers or mockers, it's in their like it's like a person removed, like it's not directly to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like that was directly to Paul. And he wasn't even mad. He was just annoyed. Like he was like, "You gotta go. Like you out of here now."
And he let it go on for a long time because we're called to be slow to anger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fruits of the spirit, they're rough. It's hard.
Yeah, they are. I saw a video, and I don't know why politics keeps coming back up in here, but like I saw this video, and she was talking about how and she was talking about who she was gonna vote for, how people were being like hard on her for this because she was a Christ follower. They're like, how could you vote this way if you believe in God, or how could you vote this way, or whatever. And she was like, essentially, she just picked out one candidate, and she was like, she was just talking about that one. But like, I'm gonna put this to both of them. Like, show me the fruits of the spirit.
Yeah.
What fruits of the spirit did they display? You know what I mean? And I'm just like, man, like, those fruits of the spirit are hard. Like, they'll get you every time.
They will. Yeah.
When you start like comparing yourself or comparing, in that case, she was comparing who she was going to vote for and like what fruits they saw, like she saw in each of those like candidates. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
man, when you start comparing yourself to that, like it's humbling.
Okay, do you remember like in MySpace days, like you could rank your friends?
Yeah.
If like Facebook had an option that like ranked your fruits of the spirit, like how you're doing, like people would know real fast who real Christians are. And let me tell you, I'm pretty low on that list because it is hard to produce good fruits. And like I try so hard to have good responses. But in my head, I am the quickest person to anger. Like it's how I was raised.
Yeah.
Like in my it's just my family. Like if you knew my family, you would understand just like the reactions. Like there is no middle ground with them. Like you immediately jump.
Yeah.
And so like I try so hard to
It's
not
hard.
be that person. And so sometimes I'm really good at it. And then sometimes I fake being good at it and I turn around and I go complain to Becca about it. Like I'm not good at
Right.
or like even self-control, like being disciplined. Like
I'm the worst.
like honestly, like if we were ranked, we would all be so humbled so quickly.
Oh, Just thinking about it, I'm feeling a lot more humble than I was coming in here.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Because I mean, honestly, like anger for me, like I've said that before, which my husband listened to the podcast and I was talking about how there was times where like him and I were fighting and like I knew he was right, but I was not gonna back down because I was so angry. And he called me immediately. He said, Katya, stop listening to my podcast.
This isn't for you.
This is not for you.
He's like our number one biggest fan, supporter.
He is,
but it's not for you.
I'm not gonna be telling on myself anymore. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's true. Like I get so angry so quick, and that has been, and I don't know why, but being a wife and a mother has really like amplified that. Get so angry so quickly, a lot more than I used to, and that's saying something. But yeah, I'm with you on that for sure.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
feeling real humble right now.
we got here. So the spirit was not part of my notes.
Maybe we need to talk about that next week or not.
No, I think that one of the things that you had mentioned earlier, and we might be wrapping up close, but you were talking about like as a society, Americans are very like God is hate, like he's mad,
Yes.
he's just judging. But I think a lot of things are pushed, like like repent or you're gonna go to hell or like this is what hell looks like.
Yeah.
But there's this guy that keeps popping up on my
The guy you keep sending me?
yeah. And like I don't know, like listening to how he talks about hell or like just like the things that he brings up. There's a lot of people who went to Bible school and I did not. So I like listening to videos like that kind of give you a different perspective and you can dig deeper into it and you can see more and like it starts to click better because it makes more sense,
Right.
like I don't think enough people care enough to have their mind changed. Christians, not people. I don't think Christians care enough to have their mind changed. And they'd rather just sit in what they've been taught for the last 20, 30 years and hold so tight to that. And I think that that's where a lot of the problems are coming from. And if we're not willing to let other people change our minds, like it doesn't mean that you've been living wrong the last 30 years if they're like that's not exactly what they meant by that. It's just growth,
Yeah.
and we're supposed to grow.
But growth hurts. Growth is painful. Growth is uncomfortable. And like you said, they don't care enough to go through that. But it's almost like a marriage. And I've been married for 9 years. And so I'm not like an expert at marriage. I'm not giving anybody marriage advice. I'll tell you that right now. Because my husband and I, we have our ups and downs. But like in a marriage, if there's one spouse that has always is, well, this is an issue, we need to work on this. This is an issue, we need to work on this. If one spouse is the only one to ever point out the issues or to ever try to have those hard conversations that are needed, and the other spouse is just like, like, I don't want to fight, I'm not going to do this, and they avoid the hard conversations, they avoid making changes, they just avoid all of the hard stuff altogether, that marriage won't last. It'll fall apart so quickly. And that's the same way with Christianity. If we refuse to go through the hard stuff and we refuse to address the things that are wrong and we just avoid it altogether and we just coast through our Christian life here in America where it's oh so easy, it's not a real relationship. It's not a real marriage. And like Christ in the New Testament, not just Christ, but just like all through the New Testament, like that is used several times, like the bridegroom and the bride, like that's used several times for a reason. And that's how marriage is. And like I I've talked before about how like I used to be like Real Housewives like fanatic, and there was one couple on there who were married for like 30 years and they recently got divorced, and that was the reason because he was talking to a friend and he was like, I just don't want to fight. And she's just always right. And he said, the friend was like talking to him and was like, she can't always be right. And he said, she can be if I don't want to deal with it. And I'm like, that it can't be like that. It can't be like that in our marriages, and it can't be like that with our relationship with Christ either.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, if you only know the surface level, like let's say you went on a date one time with a guy,
yeah,
the information you got from that date is the only information that
Yeah.
you choose to believe. That relationship's not going to go anywhere.
right,
Like, even if you do marry that person and you still refuse to believe anything else, like he's over here grown and changed to become a whole new person, but you only believe
right,
this, like you don't know that person.
right.
You don't know anything
You,
about them.
yeah,
You know? I don't know. It's wild to me that people just don't want,
to grow deeper.
and it's because it's pride. They don't want to be called wrong. They don't want to
right,
be in any shape, form, or way lower than somebody younger, newer. And it's not that they're lower, it's just you're learning something new.
Right.
And it's a pride thing, you know?
Right.
And
I agree.
that's the problem. And I
Yeah.
think too many Christians have too much pride.
Preach. Yes. All right.
I don't-
Well, if you have too much pride, if you're worried that you are too prideful, go compare yourself to the fruits of the Spirit. That's my challenge for you.
We're going to be doing that ourselves.
I don't know. Maybe. Just kidding.
You know, like the little stitch drawing she does, and she like colors him up to there. And she's like, "This is how much bad is in you."
You're gonna see my picture here. Nice.
Yeah, but no. Check your responses, you guys. How are you responding to things that hurt you, or make you angry?
What are some ways that like you guys might be mocking God and not even thinking about it?
Yeah.
Is the Holy Spirit moving you to serve? Is the Holy Spirit moving you to do this and to do that, and you refuse, and you're just sitting in your church pew? And also, it talks about in Proverbs. I think it's Proverbs. It talks about mocking those that are less than you, like more poor than you, and like making fun of the less fortunate and things like that. Like that is also a form of mocking God. How do you treat others? How do you treat the ones that you are calling out on Facebook? You know, don't mock them.
Yeah. And try to learn something new. Look up videos. Like most people don't go to Bible school. It's just not something that we all do. And so check things, look at videos, learn something, and just be open. Open your minds and your hearts to receiving the Holy Spirit and His wisdom, and not relying on your own.
Right.
That's all I got.
That's all I got. All right.
It was a good podcast.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining our conversation.
I'm sorry that we called people crybabies.
Don't be a crybaby.
Responses, Danielle.
Right.
No, we really want to grow with you guys and with our like each other and stuff. And so like we really hope that you guys don't take this as us just always being negative or always being frustrated with people.
Hitting
like
you hard. We're not.
Yeah, we're not. We really want to grow and we want you guys to grow with us. And we hope that you get that from this and that you guys will continue on this journey.
Maybe next week we'll be positive. I don't know yet. We'll see.
I don't know. I don't know what we've chosen. I have a whole list of ideas, but I don't know what's next week.
We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.